Welcome to the Lubbock or Leave It podcast, a recruiting podcast on RedRaidersports.com. I'm Matt Clare. He's been going. As always, we are brought to you by Carnley Properties. Any recruiting coverage on Red Raider Sports is brought to you by Carnley Properties. What has Carnley Properties been? It is a real estate company out of the Austin area, greater Austin area. It could be residential, ranch land, you name it. These guys, not only are they members of the Red Raider Sports community, but they're great Red Raiders. Clayton Carnley and his team can get you covered. And really, even if you're just a Red Raider and it's not necessarily the Austin area, I always encourage folks to reach out to him if you're looking to buy, sell, or do anything in the real estate sector there. So we'll include Clayton's contact info and definitely give them a shout. Ben, it's been a minute. School started. Football is literally right around the corner, man. How you feeling?
Feeling good. There's games going on right now. Texas Tech commits are in action, all over social media. So, it's good to be back.
Absolutely, man. The media pass rules are a little stricter than ever before, but you and I have got some games scheduled on the calendar. And yeah, I was just came in here to my office to record and was watching Arlington Martin, Lake Travis, and there's a few on TV. So I think it's so cool. I even saw a new Twitter account that somebody had posted that there is a group doing advanced analytics on like high school football games. So I'll have to share that with you on Twitter. Pretty interesting. I only saw surface level so far, but just incredible the amount of coverage, that gets thrown at this thing. But high school football is off and running. College is next. NFL will be right around the corner. You and I haven't connected in a while, Ben, so I wanted to start with probably the most important news that we cover on this podcast, which is recruiting. It seems like the Texas Tech 2023 class has been full for the longest time. Now at 25 total commitments. We've got two new guys to talk about on the defensive side of the ball. Jordan Sanford four-star corner out of the Arlington area, Mansfield area, as well as Ansel Nador, another high 3-star 5'7" guy out of I believe Round Rock. Round Rock, Austin area. A little bit of a tweener, so listed at defensive tackle, but maybe more of a natural fit at defensive end with his body type. I don't want to get into both of those, but again, what I'll say before we get into the specifics, just all around, quality pickups. You've got competitive offers on both offer sheets, guys that are, top ranked at their positions, top ranked in the state of Texas. I mean, just really solid wins for Coach McGuire and his staff. I don't know who we want to start with. Maybe Nador. Just because we've covered Sanford a whole lot, and I talked to him even as recent as this week. Let's talk a little bit more about Nador.
Yeah, you mentioned Sanford Go. You did a video interview with him last week, so go check that out if anyone hasn't seen it. But Nador, I mean, he's another example of where being early will help you, because Tech was his first offer, and then came Baylor and Texas and TCU and everyone else. And so the staff identified him. He was really, really high on their board, and they were able to be consistent and, eventually get his recruitment. I think you mentioned, listed as a DT, and I agree. I think he could play really anywhere. It wouldn't surprise me to see him in the Tyree Wilson role even, 6'3", 245. He does shot put, he does discus, very athletic kid who is just a really big win for Zarnell Fitch and the Texas Tech staff. With his commitment, that makes 6 defensive linemen, which is a pretty significant number, adding to the 4 from last year. So you can see what Joey McGuire is trying to do in building in the trenches.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at that number, I mean, it's something that absolutely stands out when you look at the entire body of the class. And 6 means, you're turning over a room, you're getting guys that you want to be foundational pieces, but, you're building depth, at the same time. And so I think when you look at a kid like Nador, I think number one, we can all talk about offers, right? And I don't know, how much you or the people watching this were watching Hard Knocks, but I have to go back and clip it. I should have taken video at the time, but it was Hutchinson, right, who was the number one, overall guy, and he's laying in the
Michigan.
ice. Yeah, he's laying in the ice bath with the offensive lineman who is originally from overseas, moved here, committed to Memphis. And he's like, well, what offers did you have out of high school? Oh, everybody knew I was going to Michigan. My dad played Michigan. I had this, that, and the other, right? And then he tells him, I went to Memphis. What other offers did you have? I had Alabama, I had Georgia, I had this, and you went to Memphis, right? And I just think it speaks to, and he didn't take it as a slight, but he just laughed and he said, you got to remember, I'm not from America. Like, Alabama doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
Like this, that, and the other. And he said, I went where I felt most comfortable. I went where the coaches made me feel at home. And I think all of that story to say, Nador is his parents are originally not from the States. I got to talk with his coaches. I got to talk to a few other people. Football is not like his whole world. He's into art. He's into fashion. He's into these other things. So a football player isn't like everything he is. So much so to where the coach had mentioned, like his parents just kind of took him on a summer trip, throughout Europe, and to go to museums and to, do all these different things. Right. And so everybody's got their thing. And my point in saying that is, like, I don't know if he's a kid that cares at all about the recruiting process. I'm fascinated to actually talk to him after hearing, from his coaches and stuff. But my long-winded point there is, yeah, Tech was first. But I think Coach Fitch has a relationship with the coaching staff there. Clearly, Coach McGuire probably has a relationship with every coaching staff. The defensive coordinator I spoke with was very complimentary of the staff and how they courted Ansel and this whole process. But all that to say, I mean, I think he just wanted the opportunity to play D1 football. I think that he felt comfortable with Coach Fitch. And, more so than that, if you've got your defensive coordinator who's been coaching you for years saying, hey, I played college football with this guy at TCU, he's the real deal, yada, yada, yada. I just think a lot of things went Tech's direction there. But it's funny to me how we do this in the recruiting industry, right? For some reason, like Tech or Texas, Baylor, some of these TCU, some of these other offers, it's almost like they're an afterthought, right? Because if a kid waits a little longer to commit or doesn't jump on that bigger offer, then it sort of just floats out into the abyss. Well, The offer is the offer. Like, the offer was there, right? And hell, the kid's in Round Rock, Texas, and he had that offer from Texas. So I just think that speaks a lot to the coaches just not bowing down or changing their approach whatsoever. I truly believe when they do these interviews, whether it's McGuire, Blanchard, any of them, they truly don't care who's offered the kid.
Yep.
They don't care what offers he has, don't care anything. They're going to trust their evals and they're going to go after these kids. And I think, again, it's early. And when you get in early with a kid like that, who may or may not be enamored with the recruiting process, and you can build a genuine relationship and show them a plan that you have for them. I mean, look, there's not a lot of programs in the country that are going to sign 6 defensive linemen, period. Right.
Yeah.
And so, that takes some, discussion and, this, that, and the other. But it also seems like a lot of these kids, even a position group or just in general, this recruiting class is close. I mean, they even had a picture of all the D linemen kind of sitting in the stands with the coaches all as one group. So anyway, I mean, all that to say, not only a great win, but it, by all accounts and everyone we've talked to, a really great kid with a great head on his shoulders. So to me, I look at the tape and I look at his measurables right now, and this is a kid that's going to get in a college program and only continue to grow. So I see his future. I know we have him listed at this defensive tackle, but I see his future more of a Tyree Wilson than I do like a big body that's blocking up the middle. I think he's got the bend, and I think he's got the lean kind of frame to where any muscle or any weight that he adds, it will actually be more muscle than just bulk, right? So anyway, I really like the pickup. I mean, I don't think over the past 3 years we've been talking about kids like this that had those type of offers been.
No, we were on here talking about being first to offer these kids and how Tech needed to do that. And then it happens and you see the results. So no, I mean, it's great. And then, we had a recent rivals ranking. 2 Tech commits got their, rankings went up.
Correct.
Demarcus Crest and Nick Fatigue. So the 16th ranked class in the country. Did you want to get into who's left, or did you want to kind of recap those guys? Or, I mean,
Well, just real quick for anyone that maybe, if you're watching this, you probably read all the updates and see the videos. But just as a reminder, Jordan Sanford is the other commit that we were talking about. One of your 4-stars in this class, and another big win, in my opinion. The common theme here is, you beat Washington, and you beat some other national schools, but to go head to head against an Oklahoma State and a TCU and win, and go head to head against the Baylor and Texas win. That's how you stack talent. That's how you win football games, right? That's the whole point of this. And so with Sanford, I mean, you're just getting a kid that's an outstanding athlete. And it does kind of take the sting off of losing a Calvin Simpson Hunt, just from a ranking standpoint, but also just a pure talent standpoint. You've got to have those dudes in this type of football that we play these days, where it's spread out and it's fast and it's pass, pass, pass.
Yeah, and Sanford is one of those sub 11, second 100-meter guys. I think, obviously you want to increase your team speed, and he's a track All-American type of player. But yeah, I mean, Sanford, I thought it was interesting, both with you and whenever I've talked with him, he really mentioned his relationship with Coach Yates. Coach Yates isn't a name that I've heard too often from recruits, but, from Sanford, he kept going back to that, and how, impactful their relationship was in this decision. So, I mean, kudos to Coach Yates on that one.
Yeah, I'm probably paraphrasing a little bit, but he said that he liked the realness from Coach Yates, because a lot of college coaches blow you up, shower you with love. And Coach Yates is like, when you get to college, I'm not going to do that. So I'm not going to do that now. And, that I think he just liked that.
Yeah, and Sanford did a really good job not giving his decision away. I think you look back at it, he was at TCU Friday and Saturday. He committed on Wednesday to Tech. So, and at one point he had deleted all of his Instagram pictures except for Oklahoma State. So, I mean, kudos to him too for keeping his decision. But I mean, again, a great pickup, and someone who can play corner, safety, nickel. And I think, along with the coaches, also he mentioned his relationship with Kelby Valson and some of these other commits that, they grew up together. So you have a whole bunch of good friends heading to Lubbock.
Well, and it just, again, you look at it, you got Landon Holby from the same school last year. That certainly helped. But that area in general, right? Mansfield, Arlington, extends all the way to Dallas. I mean, that is what you're going to get with Joey McGuire, Dave Martin, all these guys combined with all their experience. You are going to continue to have these wins in those areas, because Kenny Perry. Kenny Perry. And it period, like those are guys that have relationships. Those are guys that have real, like, we're talking decades of experience, in those circles. And so I just think that's going to be a big difference maker when we really look at that. And even forget Texas and OU, look at the new Big 12, right? You got to beat Oklahoma State, Baylor, TCU. You should win those battles, and maybe we should go back and look and see like the commitment list and kind of, go through those battles and kind of see what that looks like from each angle. That might be an interesting follow-up. But you were saying, real quick, I interrupted to talk about Sanford a little bit there. You were saying remaining, right? So let's reset the table, Ben. 25 commitments. That's a lot. That's the most. I've covered this team for nearly a decade. That is by far the most commits going into a season ever, right? That's in typical normal years, right? The rules have changed. You can add over 25, and that kind of really all depends on the whole numbers game. But as you stand right now, 25 commitments, number 16 class in the nation. A lot of like, whoa, hey, kind of moments there when you said that out loud. But it sounds like they've got room for a few more. And while the list is small, why don't you run us through maybe some of the maybes and the guys that are still holding a committable offer from the Red Raiders? I hate that word, but an official offer from the Red Raiders.
Yeah, I would say, the next decision to be made is Tyler Johnson. He's an offensive lineman, Natchitoches Central, Louisiana. It's a tough word for me to say, but I think I got it. It's the same high school as Tredarius Brown, is a defensive tackle who's committed to Tech. So I've messaged with Tyler. He said his top 4 is Tech, Baylor, Kansas State, and Missouri. I don't think it's going to be Tech. They have their 4 O-line commits, and I think, the coaches are good with that. But, he's a good player. He did visit, official visit. He did post an official offer earlier this month. So, I mean, it should someone decommit, maybe do they circle back? Who knows? But he's committing on, next Friday or September 2nd.
Well, the
So,
coaches sent him an edit today. Like, good
correct.
luck with your first game.
Eh,
So you got to feel like he's still on that list.
Correct.
I mean, again, right? I mean, I think the only outlier there is Missouri, right? And that's got that whole SEC cachet, if you believe in that. And then you've got Kansas State and Baylor.
Baylor. Yeah,
I don't know Baylor's class either, but I would say out of those, it's, I believe you've said most likely K-State or Missouri.
I would guess.
But I mean, again, I think knowing that there are additional scholarships and knowing he's been on campus and knowing the coaches are still sending him edits, he feels like a kid that, and I believe you've reported this, they would take him if he
Yes,
wakes up in the morning and says, you know what, it's actually Texas Tech, right? And
correct.
that could happen. But yes, the reading through the tea leaves and all that right now, it is not. But a big kid, a really big kid, and it doesn't hurt to have a teammate committed. So I would just chalk that one up to keep an eye on it, but maybe not going the Red Raiders way.
Yeah. A receiver target who I feel like we've talked about a while finally got his rivals ranking with the latest update from Nebraska, Jalen Lloyd. National title winner in the triple jump or the long jump? Yeah, the long jump. He won that this past month, 25 feet 4 inches. He's also third in the 100-meter, just a super athlete. He switched high schools. He was at Omaha Central, and I was at Omaha West Side. I looked, I don't know too much about these schools, but I looked at their max preps, and it looks like he upgraded schools. This new school wins a lot more. They throw the ball a lot more. So I'm excited to see a senior season tape and highlights because you can't teach this kind of speed. And what's interesting is we talked about how Tech does not care who else offered; they trust their own evaluations. This is that case, right? He does not have another Power Five offer. Nebraska, his hometown school, doesn't appear to want him at all. But Tech is all in. They send him a new edit every week, and the coaches are blowing him up. So we'll see. I don't think his
Pretty
visit. I don't think his official visit's scheduled yet, but I expect him to take one sometime early this season.
I would say, that everything that you said, I don't have much to add to that. I mean, it fits the profile of standout athlete, track star, national champion, I think says it all. Under recruited, maybe, right?
Yeah,
What was his ranking? What did they put him as?
he's a 5'5", 3.
Gotcha.
So,
I mean, to me, the thing that stands out is what we were just talking about, right? Is 6 defensive line commitments. Well, you add another guy like Lloyd, and you're getting up there for wide receiver commitments too. So you can just really see the new staff really kind of putting their marks on this roster moving forward, and you can kind of see a vision of what they want. And if you are a crazy football fanatic like most of us watching this most likely are, then you've watched Kitley's offense. You know that he doesn't need the 6'8" monsters. They help, right? But those guys, the Stearns brothers, they fit this like slot sort of wide receiver role where you don't have to be this gigantic guy. And I mean, heck, you even look at like Eric Ezukanma and what he's doing. He's not a physically imposing, type of guy. These guys are athletic, fast, good route runners, and they can stretch the D. And so I just think that you look at the Pal Freemans and a few of the others, they clearly want to have those guys as well as some of the taller outside guys as well that of course Emmett Jones is always going to have.
yeah, it's a good point you made about Kitley's offense because under Cliff, Tech always had like 18 scholarship receivers. It was a high number. Then Wells came in and that dropped to like 10, 11. They really, because there were 3 receivers on every play. So now you bring Kitley back in, going to go more to that air raid type offense. They're trying to up the numbers there. Not the last guy, but I would say the most probably last realistic guy, because they're still going to try to flip Calvin Simpson Hunt and Avion Carter and Colton Vasek, but those are just, you try and you try as hard as you want, but What are your odds there? Who knows? I don't. But the last guy I would say Miles Thompson, and he's committed to Northern Illinois. He's a corner out of Washington High School in Iowa. So, and again, raise your hand if you've heard this one before. Another track star. So,
Yeah.
second, he finished second in the state. 10, I think it was like a 10-5 or something like that, maybe 10-4. An extremely fast guy, but he's interesting because they're recruiting him as a corner, and he until now he's played mostly like running back, receiver. He said he's starting to play corner now this season. So and he's going to officially visit versus Houston. So September 10th. He doesn't have an offer yet, but I expect one to come that weekend. And I think Tech pushes and they're able to get him to flip.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that's one of those where, unless he just wants to be closer to home, then Tech would be the no-brainer, path there, right? Like, all due respect to Eastern Illinois. Sure. I mean, it's all a food chain here. But it is interesting, right? Because the coaches know at this point, with 25 commitments, right? You got to hold on to your guys. We've seen a little bit of attrition here and there, but nothing crazy, right? Nothing that's out of the norm, whatsoever. And so I think you've got, at this point, right, we're about to flip the page of September, we're about to start the football season. This is what your class will most likely look like. I mean, out of all those guys that we just mentioned, they may take one, they may take two. I would say the most likely would be Lloyd. And then if they
Thompson.
really later in the year, like when we get into like coaches getting on the road again and like in-home visits, I think of a kid like I'm just throwing a random name out here, but from the spring game, AJ Newberry, Colorado commit, he was on campus. He looked like a good looking kid. So if they really, really get to a point where they say, we want another corner or we want another safety or whatever, right? I think they can stick and move, and they have that luxury right now. And like I said, again, hold on to your own, but you're at the point now where, you could add a couple more high school players and then still have room for a handful of, transfers, graduate transfers, whatever, is out there, because, again, it's going to be the Wild West again. It's going to be the third year of the portal. And there's going to be kids available left and right. And, typically what I think is most interesting about McGuire's approach is kids may come and go, but it just seems like the program and the team, I should say, is like, I don't know, it just feels like they're closer than ever right now,
Yeah.
and it just feels like the vibe and the energy and all that is much different than what we've seen in recent history. And so I'm eager to see how that all kind of pulls together, because if he can do that with guys that he inherited, guys that he may have recruited during his tenure at Baylor, all the relationships aside, what will it be like when he gets like his full classes in here? And what will it be like if they can capitalize on this momentum in years forward? I mean, right now, to be 16th in the nation, I think you broke it down this week or last week, something pretty drastic would have to happen for them not to have that top 25 class.
Yeah.
So, that's pretty huge for Texas Tech. That's something you could absolutely build on. You're not, reality, you're trying to win as much as possible. Recruiting rankings wise, you're not trying to be number one in the nation. You're just trying to do things that are within your reach. And I just think that in that with the new staff and in the new Big 12, if they can consistently beat teams like Baylor, Oklahoma State, or TCU, or at least get their fair share, and then add on top of that, I think they're going to continue this momentum. And I just think more and more kids are going to notice, what's going on out there. So anyway, a lot of time left to go, just like Tech's trying to flip Avion Carter or get Calvin Simpson Hunt back. I guarantee you there's people trying to get your commits to visit, and, who knows if they'll be successful or not. We'll find out. But to me, pretty interesting to see where they are going into the season, because that's incredible to have 25 going in the year. I mean, you and I used to say about Baylor, like, okay, they have 21 commits, like it's June, right? But they kind of knew what they were doing, right? So, I mean, anyway.
Absolutely. with your point of in the new Big 12, Tech should be able to do this type of stuff and compete for the title. I mean, I think everyone on Red Raider Sports would agree with you. Once Texas and Oklahoma especially leave. Did you want to get into the two deep at all, Shuck, or one last recruiting thing I wanted to mention, just because I
Okay.
mentioned his name earlier, Demarcus Crest, who got improved to a 5.7. I wanted to pull this quote from the Athletic article that came out a couple of months ago, that Crest's 50-50 win rate and catch rate are better than just about any receiver, prospect, or pro that Tech has compared him to. So I don't know what that means, but it appears that it's a well-deserved jump if he's going to win 50-50 balls and catch the ball better than any pro receiver that Tech has compared him to.
I saw him at the spring game, and he has like a height and a frame that'll remind you of Vasher. But I also didn't see Vasher in high school, if that makes sense, like in person. So what I would say is I think he has a lot more to fill out. But I mean, he is long, and to me, he's a pup. I would be interested in talking to him a little bit more and understanding his age and stuff, because he's young. And I mean, to that point, I don't know what all that means, right? He could, I don't know what level of football, that is, or who he's playing, but at the end of the day, right, you got to throw it up, you got to go get it. And with his height, and with his athleticism, having that at an early age, that's just something that can be built upon. And I think, truly, I think one of the better additions, not just because of who he is and his background and his ability to recruit. I do think Emmett Jones is a great technician. I think that the receiver room will benefit. And I just think that the intensity and the passion that he brings to that as a former head coach, I think that group's going to excel. But I would love to talk about the two deep. I don't know how much time we have.
We have about 9 minutes.
Yeah. So I would say we can't go through the two deep. What I would like to say is, quarterback battle and the fact that I mentioned the team is kind of together and all that. You've seen around the country, you've seen guys lose jobs and transfer. I think I read about a kid at Cincy who was a 2022 recruit and already transferred because he didn't, win the job. So, there's a lot of craziness out there. But, I think Shuck makes sense for so many reasons. Coming in as a transfer last year, we had all these things we talked about with him, and we interviewed Oregon folks, and we talked to Tyler himself. We talked to his quarterback trainer. We did a lot of things, but the sample size was so small last year that it was very difficult for Tech fans to remember, what the Shuck-led Red Raider offense looked like, but it's also a new coaching staff. And so everything we say about Kitley's offense is, you need it. Traditional air raid, everyone knows watching this, you need someone that can make quick decisions and someone that can be accurate. Those are the things that you need in that offense. I think, guys, if you look at like Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, guys that have like excelled recently in that quasi air raid sort of offense that's out there with Lincoln Riley and his variation, and even Bailey Zappi at not
Western Kentucky, Houston Baptist.
WKU, there you go.
Yeah.
And Houston Baptist. I mean, it was quick, concise, accurate, and there was just a lot of harmony with the receivers. I think Shuck gives you the best chance to do that. I think you'll see Smith. I think you'll see packages there, but I'm really encouraged by what I heard about, Morton, because we know Morton and we know that his time is coming. But we also know that a Tech quarterback has not finished a full season in years. Right. So while I think Tyler Shuck makes sense for a lot of reasons, man, it would be pretty encouraging to see like Morton excel, whether that's this year or Shuck goes off, because I think Lovell made a great point. Like Shuck is engaged. He's older.
Got 2 degrees. Yeah.
Right. This guy has 2 degrees. I don't think he's here for any swan song beyond this season. Right. However, if he has a great year and he's able to go chase his NFL dreams, then you truly have a battle going into that next season. And I think Morton could be one of those guys that takes over and is a multi-year starter for the Red Raiders. So we'll see how that pans out. But again, with Shuck healthy, with I think the biggest question is O-line, right? Which we probably don't have time to like go through all of it, but bummer to hear about Cole Spencer and what, maybe could have been there. But it's next man up, right? It's college football season hasn't started. I think receiver to me is interesting. I think running back speaks for itself. You've got Roderick and you've got Taj Brooks. Like, all things considered, if they're healthy, that's a great 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
And then at receiver, I'm just pretty interested to see what happens there, Ben, because I think from a recruiting standpoint, you and I both covered him closely. Jerron Bradley seems to be the guy coming out of camp that's making plays, running with the ones and doing things of that nature. Not only is he tall, but he's thick. I mean, I think that you're gonna have a lot to work with out there. I'm excited to see the depth that Emmett Jones has to work with on the outside, but
Yep.
then also, guys like Boyd and others that have transferred in, seeing what they can do on the inside. And then of course we haven't even touched on the big tight ends yet. So I think a lot to like on offense. I don't know your thoughts, but that kind of caps it for me. I don't know what Cup and Tharp will do in the offense, but I would imagine it's going to be pretty creative and interesting to say the least.
And you probably didn't even mention the biggest freak of them all, Loic Fungi, who's like 6'4"
Yeah.
and runs like a 4.4. And that was in McGuire's media day. He mentioned he's the starter at Z. That was like one of the first jobs that was sealed is Loic. So I think, yeah, you mentioned John Bradley. I think you'll have Bradley, Miles Price in the slot, tight end, and Loic Fungi. I think, that we'll find out the official depth chart probably on Monday with the weekly game notes. That's what I expect. And so we'll see. But yeah,
I mean, Price is a leader on the team. I didn't even mention him, right?
yeah.
I'm not saying that
Oh,
speaks to me having a bad memory or them having a ton of depth, but not only is he a leader on the team, but he's a spark plug. I mean, I feel like he's that guy we were talking about earlier with recruits where you can give him the ball and he just goes.
yeah.
So it'll be interesting.
He's going to blow up in this offense. You saw what they did with the Stearns brothers. You saw what Kiki QT did here. And, so many guys before him. So yeah, I mean, Price is gonna have a huge year, and just O-line. How about Dennis Wilburn, who's a JUCO walk-on, winning this center job? He was a guy who Coach Hamby and Kitley offered actually at Western Kentucky, so he was a scholarship guy for them, and then they got to Tech, and he was a JUCO All-American. So don't get me wrong, this isn't some guy who's just coming in here and was just handed the job because there's no one else. No, he won it, and he looks like a legit player. He has great size. 2 years left. I'm excited to see because Hamby was a center, right? And so he puts a lot on those guys. So I'm excited for him and just to see how he runs the show. Landon Peterson's a guy who's been around a few years. He was a West Texas recruit from Odessa Permian. And if Cole Spencer's gone, he's probably going to start. So a good opportunity for Landon Peterson. I think overall, just Kitley's, I have a lot of faith in Kitley to get things right and make the offense better than it was, regardless of who's healthy or who's not. So I'm kickoff's 9 days away, and I'm just excited to see what it looks like.
Yeah, a lot of people will kind of say your O-line has to be good for your team to be great, type of deal. I would say that they've got the players and the pieces, maybe not all the experience and the cohesion just yet. So those early games in the season, I mean, they're not going to get any breaks, right? You've got, maybe again, knock on wood, right? But you've got a out of conference game to start where they'll probably look tremendous, right? But then immediately you go into Houston and then you go to NC State and then you have Texas at home. So there's not going to be a lot of time for them to grow together. It's going to be trial by fire. But I do think the saving grace is Kitley's offense can really adapt to that, right? If they need to go bang, 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 back to back and create rhythm to where that pass rush isn't a factor, I think they can do that. But at the same time, I think you have such talent at running back where it will often make the O-line look a lot better, than they may be at first. And so, again, it's going to be a lot of new faces, but I think even without Spencer, I think some of these guys will surprise. They knew that coming in when they got here, they addressed it, they built some depth, and I'm interested to see because there's guys like you mentioned, Landon Peterson. It's just a big reminder in flashing lights that at O-line, none of these recruits we talk about, you're not going to hear about them for a couple of years, and you shouldn't, right? If you're recruiting the position, right? And I know that even the previous staff, while they didn't have like big numbers, they always had two solid O-line recruits with those offers that we talked about earlier. So I think that room will continue to develop and get better. And, they've got 4 solid guys here. Now we're at less than a minute, Ben, so we can't really talk defense, but that just means we need to reconnect and, go over things before the game next weekend.
Absolutely. That sounds good.
All right, guys, don't forget, check out Carnley Properties. Our friend Clayton Carnley will put the information below. He's Ben Golan. I'm Matt Clare. This is the Lubbock or Leave It podcast. See ya.